All right, let's get started. So I wasn't planning on having another town hall this quick, past the last one last Wednesday, where we went over debris removal in pretty good depth. And if anyone wasn't able to join that first one, it is on the Upper Captiva Civic Association website. You can watch that one in full. There's a lot of great information. On Friday, Doug Whitehead reached out to me to ask if we could get another one together for this week to go over the process again, because there's a couple of curveballs. And Justin, if cool with you, I'll just kind of go through some of the basics, and then if you want to dive in and correct me or just add to what I throw out there.
Sure.
Yeah, so our process, right, is going to take, trucks and probably some sort of grapplers. And originally they were thinking bringing roll-off containers, like 20-yard, 30-yard roll-off containers. They'd fill those, they would barge those back and forth to the mainland. A local barging company quoted out $15,000 round trip per load for the barging in the debris removal process. The Lee County Procurement Office balked at that and has now pushed back Lee County Solid Waste that they need to send the whole project out to bid on the barging portion. Crowder Gulf will still oversee the collection and all like that, but the barging portion now needs to go out to bid, and that's going to delay our initial pickup. Last week, Doug had thrown out that they would like to start as early as possibly this week. That's now not going to happen because of this bid process that needs to happen. So with that, I'll kind of lead this section over to Justin to sort of talk about that a little bit. And Justin, do we know like what that bid process takes, how long that takes?
Typically, it's going to be about 2 weeks. So we'll go through that bid process. It would go out for bid. We would see who all submits bids for that. The scope of work was finalized yesterday. So we know that there are several potential options for barge sites on island. Those options would be either privately owned barge sites or the potential of using the east end of the airstrip. If we go that route, there would be careful attention to not impede on the ability to run an aircraft in and out of that airstrip to the best of our ability, which would also involve not staging material at all on the east end of the airstrip. So it'd be simply loading a barge and then hauling that to a landing zone, whether that would be Pine Island or potentially Punta Rasa. That's still to be determined. We're going to include that in the bid to allow the barge operators to make that determination and basically include that on their quote as to where their landing zone would be. So we'll keep that ball in their court. But yeah, essentially, as far as the segregation of material, that will not change. It just purely changes our timeline. So a couple weeks back, we have the plan in place with Crowder. So once we have trucks on island, one question that had come up last week was, what portion of the island would we start with? So we've actually coordinated with Chief Jason Martin to identify some critical infrastructure access points. Thank you to Jason. He's identified six streets.
A few weeks ago, there was like a Zoom meeting.
Hey, Thomas, can you mute?
So with those 6 identified streets, that's where collection will begin. The intent is those would essentially be the arteries of the island to make sure we can access for fire prevention as well as to access the other remaining streets. So that's in place. The trucks, if you missed last meeting, we're planning on using a smaller scale version collection. It's a knuckle boom truck is what Crowder Golf refers to it as, but picture the idea of using 130 cubic yard collection vehicle on Upper Cap is just not practical. So it's a smaller scale version of that. So they'll be going, running down the streets, assuming that streets are roughly 10 foot in width, being the more narrow side, they'll have to use that specialized equipment, but they will be collecting everything that's placed on the curb. So that's all still unchanged. We did also get another big check on the to-do list as far as what we needed to do logistically on the county side, and we needed to identify how this debris would be classified in the eyes of FEMA. So we didn't know if it would be considered as a private property debris removal project or a commercial debris removal project. So the state has clarified that the North Captiva area will be considered private roadways with public access. Therefore, anything staged on the right of way will be eligible for collection, which is essentially what we had assumed. But FEMA and the state were able to clarify that. So that was really good. We actually just got that clarification on Monday morning. So moving along, we did not have that as of last Wednesday. So essentially, and again, on behalf of Doug, he was planning to be on this meeting tonight, but he just wanted to emphasize that the Lee County procurement team emphasizes being good for financial stewards for the county. So, by going the open bid route, this way we'll open up it'll open up the opportunity for outside companies to submit a bid so we can get the best price for that, that service. So ultimately, anyone that's licensed and insured would be eligible to submit the bid based on the scope of work, as long as they can meet that criteria.
Great. So sort of following up with that and go to what Brian brought up earlier regarding bull bags. So I want to quickly go through just a quick history of the bull bag. So the original idea was we wanted to reach out to Bull Bag to see if we could purchase 1,000 or more bull bags for the island to use, because we felt that would be a very clean process. In the end, in our original conversations with the CEO of Bull Bag, he balked at that idea and basically stated that due to their patent, nobody could touch their bag except them, and that they would not allow the county to touch their bag. Later, he sent an email to the county, basically threatening a lawsuit against the county if they touched his bag. You all may see reviews and comments or people that have reached out to him, posting some negative stuff about him because of this process. And he is pushing back that he's trying to help, that he won't allow the county to pick up his bag, but he'll allow Crowder Gulf to pick up his bag, which doesn't make sense. Crowder Gulf will be picking it up on behalf of the county anyway. So it's the county's view right now that they will not allow any branded bag with a patent to be picked up. So if you have stuff in a bull bag, if you have stuff in a bagster, it will not be picked up. It's at your personal discretion to empty that bag. You can put the contents loose on the side of the roadway of the right of way, or you can rebag it in a different bag, but they will not pick up a branded bag. JD Porter has been working on sourcing a generic construction bag from China. We think we found one. It looks good. It will still probably take 30 days for us to get them in. I'll probably put a poll up in the Facebook group to take the temperature of the community. If you'd buy them, they'll probably cost under $30 each. And they'll be large. They'd be bigger than a bagster. And if the community wants that, then we could source those and get them in, but it'll take a little bit of time. So in this next probably 30 days, we would not have those. And Justin, I don't know if you want to comment about the bull bag situation. Yeah,
when it comes to bags, we're not opposed to bags by any means. We just need to be able to identify what's in the bag. So Swan and I talked about this a little bit earlier too. If you're going the route of a generic bag to containerize things like drywall or tiles, things of that nature that are prone to get into sand and potentially linger for years, I would agree. I think it's the right idea to containerize that if at all possible. We just don't want to infringe on any copyrights or patents, so bull bag, waste management bagster are two of your more common, privately owned hauling companies, and technically with their copyright infringement. If anyone else hauls that material, it sets up, litigation issues, things like that. So in order to avoid those things, if we can stay away from those, ultimately it makes the collection process more streamlined. So, I mean, like Swin said, Crowder Golf will not be picking up bull bags or bagsters. If it's generic, if it's a bag like the one that's potentially being used here in the near future, we're okay with it. Just make sure to keep those materials segregated. So if it's construction debris, just make sure that only construction debris goes in that bag. If we start seeing household hazardous waste mixed in the bag, then it basically voids that whole bag. So then it would be something that you would have to go back and separate out. So that would actually slow the process. So as long as you're able to keep those separated out, I think it actually may even streamline collection when it comes time for all that little stuff. I mean, with a clam bucket style collection vehicle, they're just, they have a hard time with little pieces. They're more, I mean, vegetative waste, no problem. Larger construction debris, no problem. It's that little stuff that can be a challenge. So this would actually help them to pick up the whole bag. We hope that the bag would be sturdy enough to hold that material and basically move it right to the truck, and then they can take it and transport that to the barge and get rid of it for you.
Right on. So next, just real quick to go over is, Doug had mentioned last week that typically we would get 3 passes, right? So 3 times that they come in, they go up and down every road, they grab the piles and remove them. Can you tell us, do you have a sense how spaced apart those passes would be? Let's say, you have to go through the barge bid process now. Let's just say that in 3 weeks you do pass number 1. When would you expect to be doing pass number 2? Would it be a couple of months later, or when?
Typically at least a week or 2, just to allow time for anyone that hadn't had a chance to move that material out to make sure that it's very clearly communicated. So we'll continue, if possible, to make a presence here on the UCCA meetings, as well as streamlined communication through Chief Martin. So we'll make that very clear, very upfront, when first pass is completed and when second pass is planning to begin. The idea is to get this project wrapped up and done. So, between passes, to wait 3 weeks is a bit long, in my opinion.
Okay.
So I think 1 to 2 weeks is a little more streamlined and a little more efficient if we can get it set up that way.
So if we start pass number 1, say 3 weeks from now, we should expect pass 3 to be done within like 6 weeks after that. Is that correct?
A lot of that is pending on how long pass number 1 takes. Pass number 1 always takes the longest.
Okay.
It's really difficult to make that assumption, because sometimes one street can take half a week in itself just to do that one street. Other streets may take an hour and it's wrapped up and done. So I think as we get on the island, as we get more of a feel for for how long the transport takes, depending on, are they going to Punta Rassa? Are they going to Pine Island? If they're going to Pine Island, that may speed things up. It's a shorter commute. So, those sorts of variables will make that determination on how long.
Understood. So pass 1 could take weeks to complete, possibly.
Possibly, yes.
Got it. Okay. I mean, that's really all I had, to go over, unless anyone needs us to go over, the standard, like what the separate piles are. You can always watch the debris video, the town hall from last week, and it goes into detail and all that. So I guess we'll start Q&A. Anyone that has any questions for Justin or any part of this process?
4 hands up there.
Justin, this is Duncan.
Yep. All right, let's start with Ann.
I just want to clarify, if you can, understanding that now we're starting an RFP process that maybe should have been started earlier, right? We're 2 weeks out, we're 3 weeks out. Like, how far out are we for the beginning of this process?
We're estimating about 2 weeks out before we have trucks on island collecting debris.
Okay, and so at that point, will we be given a heads up, like, 24 hours, 48 hours in advance that, hey, trucks will be coming on the island on X date? I think that's important for those of us who maybe pile debris in a way that it's not separated and all of that sort of thing that we need to sort of figure out.
Yes, absolutely. Once a date has been identified, it will be streamlined through Chief Martin to all 4 districts of the island. This way we can get that message spread out as far as we can to get everyone on the same page. So that way, when you see those trucks show up, it won't be a surprise to anyone.
Okay, and then just one more question from me. You talked about putting debris in the right of way. Are you all saying now that you're not going to be able to scoop over, say, posts and ropes to get debris that is actually situated on, which may be private property or part of the right of way, because it's all sort of murky here? Or do we have to get everything into the roadways in order for it to get picked up?
You should be able to still go, you're 10 feet back onto from the edge of the roadway, 10 feet back onto your property. Justin, is that correct?
Yes, 10 foot based on the FEMA guidelines. It's 10 foot from the edge of the roadway. So if if you're working on, if you run out of space on one side of the fence and you need to utilize the other side of a rope fence, that's fine. Just try to mark it as best you can. Those collection crews will do their best to avoid property damage. If there's debris that's piled around that rope fence and they're not able to see it, they may take that rope fence with the construction debris, and we don't want that to happen. So just do your best to try to make that known. If you need to flag it with caution tape, so that way the collection crews can clearly tell that you would like to keep that fence, that would be encouraged. But yes, they will still be that is unchanged. Basically, that the clarification from the state was what we thought it would be, but we needed to receive that confirmation. And so with it coming through Monday, that was one of the last boxes we needed to check before actually sending trucks out to the island.
Okay, thank you.
Lisa?
Hi, so a couple questions I have, and just for clarification, because I do think it's important just for all of us to understand. When we attended the fire district meeting and Credit Golf was there and you was there, can you help us just understand a little bit, like, was it, and it seemed like all systems go, they understood the intricacies of the island and what was involved. I mean, you don't need to get into details, obviously, but was there just snafus with the actual removal process? Is that what has caused this delay? Was it an understanding from Carter Golf in terms of the barging aspects of it? Like, if you could just give just a brief overview, a little bit of what changed and why. And then secondly, no one has really mentioned tonight yet about the vegetation, which I know there's extreme concern about in terms of, everyone rushed like crazy to get these piles made up. And now we are sitting duck for some of that concerns. And so where does that sit in it? And is there a consideration of doing a sweep first of vegetative removal to remove fire hazards? And then thirdly, I guess, there's many homes here who they have made piles of their exterior debris but haven't even begun cutting walls out and stuff. And so as we delay this timeline, and now they have to get in there and start to remove those walls, how do we manage that pile formation from these homeowners who have been delaying cutting their walls out, but now need to? And so if you could just provide a little insight into that, that would be great.
Justin?
Yes. Yep. Okay. So the first part of your question was about the debris removal process and what has changed. So the original proposal did include the barge operations going through a local vendor. That was all part of the proposal. It was a pass-through cost. So the proposal that Crowder had for the collection vehicles that will be on island has remained unchanged. The pass-through cost, being that it was higher than anticipated, is what was submitted to our Board of County Commission and as well as to our procurement department to review. That pass-through cost was was a red flag, essentially based on the the market value for barge operations. So because of that, that pass-through cost is what was singled out and kicked back and said, well, if that's the one part that's going to hold up the operations from the procurement perspective based on price, then that's what we can put out for bid. So it wouldn't be going out through the RFP process. It would just be going out for bid, which is quicker than the full RFP process. So it's just simply that one component of the debris collection process, because ultimately we know it needs to be collected, it needs to be transported, and it needs to ultimately reach a final disposal site. So everything else remains unchanged. It's just purely the barge operation price is what has created a setback from the from that fiscal perspective. So again, that's something that was going to be a pass through directly through Crowder. That was something that they were choosing to try to go with a local vendor if possible, and we still may end up going with a local vendor, but not at that price point. So the second part to your question was about the concern on vegetative waste and the fire hazard that's affiliated with that. I would agree with you. I mean, absolutely. The vegetative waste curbside is becoming drier by the day. I think everyone's aware of the importance of the safety risk that's affiliated with it, including Chief Martin. So, because of that, once we have crews on island, we would certainly prioritize taking vegetative debris first. This way you can sort of reduce that fire hazard. I think we would all be in agreement that the vegetative waste is going to carry more of a fire risk than things like, especially saturated drywall. I mean, you couldn't hardly burn that if you had to. So yeah, absolutely. With the safety concern, we would start with those 6 critical streets, prioritizing vegetative waste. One other option for the folks of UCCA or for Fire Chief Jason Martin to consider is over nearby on USEPA. I believe the Florida Forest Service is handling burning of their vegetative waste on island. So that's another route you could choose to go. Depending on engaging all the logistics that would come with that. But that could be a way to expedite your vegetative debris removal and processing even before Crowder is on site. So we know that the construction debris needs to be barged off, but vegetative waste, there's a few other options, and one of those options would be burning the material. So something to think about, something to gauge your temperature on, but that is an option. That's currently what USEPA Island is doing as the conditions are okay for them to do so based on the permit that would be required to pull by the day for any pile burning. Lastly, you mentioned the construction debris and demolition process for residents that are not able to get that material out yet. When it comes to the option of having multiple passes, that's why the intent of having up to 3 passes is necessary. So, for the folks that don't have space to move that material out, the first pass will create more space, and also passes 2 and 3 will generate more time to get back on island to move that material. So, as long as you have it out by pass number 3, then it would be picked up and collected. So we know that this first pass may be more vegetative waste than anything else, but passes 2 and 3 probably will have more of a higher volume when it comes to construction and demolition material.
So if I may, did you mute me?
No, we didn't hear you.
Is it a situation, I know in a normal process, you're going to have one particular person who's been chosen for this debris removal through the barges. Is there a situation where we could create a collaborative effort if we were to able to get more than just one particular company or individual out here, if we could get a collaborative effort to combine those efforts to make that happen, or is that not a thing?
It's depending the barge operation that's chosen based on the price point and the scope of work. They may have multiple barges in their operations. If they do have multiple barges, then we would not be opposed to that. It would just need to be something that's included. But yeah, the intent is to select one barging operator with the ability to meet the confines of that scope of work that was generated. So whatever it takes to meet that scope of work, that's who would that's who Crowder Golf would be including on their overall proposal at the end of the day.
And Lisa, I can tell you there are other area barge operators that are ready to bid on this work, including the owners of Little Mo. So, Melissa? Melissa?
Sorry, I was driving. I forgot to lower my hand. You kind of answered my question about marking my posts and ropes. I have flags I was gonna mark them with and make sure that was okay.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, however you choose to mark it, whether it's through ribbons or caution tape or just something to identify that that you'd like to keep that fence in place, would be encouraged.
Okay.
Nikki, can you mute? Tom?
Yeah, obviously, some of us don't have that much space in front of our houses for these piles that are a lot bigger. As long as they're differentiated, but next to each other, is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. As long as you have them segregated out. I would just try to keep at least a foot between those two piles.
Okay, a foot. That's good to know.
Hey, Justin, I wanted to kind of follow up on Tom's question there. So I know I've seen news reports in Cape Coral where they've created, areas where residents can come dump stuff on centralized sites. And we had talked about that in regards to appliances and golf carts on our island. First, can we do that? Can we have centralized couple of lots that we, pile up all appliances on? Will that work with the FEMA process? And then, alternatively, if we needed to have a couple of lots that people brought vegetative debris to and piled up, if they don't have space on the road, could we do that?
So the only area that's currently approved for collection would be right of way. So
Okay.
you mentioned lots. In order to use private lots, there's a number of steps involved. One being you need the DEP pre-site authorization as a temporary debris management site. So, depending on what the commodity is, it would need to be classified for that commodity type. Typically, we would approve DMS sites for construction debris, for horticulture, as well as mixed debris. So white goods, appliances are a little more difficult because of the refrigerants in your fridge freezers. So, it can be done, but as it stands now, anything that's on a private lot would not qualify for collection. So, let's hold off on private lots for the time being and see what we can do on as far as right of way, even if you have to use the right of way on the other side of the street or down the road a little ways to have space for those white goods. But based on the guidance that the state provided on Monday, they specifically really highlighted the public right of way and cited the FEMA guidance when they had given us that clarification.
Okay. Tom?
Yeah, the other thing I was thinking that would be really helpful, I know this is awful hard to answer. When you start your first pass, which is going to be your big one, how long do you think it'll take? Because I'm on a back road where you're not going to get to me till the end, probably.
It's
just
hard
so
to,
I can judge it.
Yeah, it's dependent on how the barge operating, how long is it taking to transport material off island is a variable. The number of trucks on island, how much debris, there's just a lot of variables still. So it's hard to give you an exact timeline. If I had to guess, I would say based on what I've seen, we've probably got about 60% of the homes currently on upper cap with debris curbside. Out of that 60% of the homes, we're looking at a few, probably 2,000 cubic yards, 2,000 to 3,000 cubic yards of debris. With the full-fledged debris collection operation, I would guess a month for the first pass would be my best guess, but don't quote me on that. Again, there's a lot of variables, and we know that we know that North Cap is a unique place as well as all other outer islands. So it's different than the mainland. But I can tell you this, on the mainland, without the need to barge, I mean, we're what, a little over a month past landfall on Ian, and there's already been almost 2 million cubic yards debris collected. So it's a quick moving process once you have trucks in the field. So Crowder is they may not have deployed these knuckle boom trucks to North Cap, so to say, but they have used them in other island environments, especially around the Louisiana area. So they're no stranger to working through narrow roadways and barge operations. So once we get the experts out there and let them do what they do best, they'll definitely find efficiency and make sure it happens as quickly as possible.
Well, that sounds great. Thanks.
Justin, I wanted to speak to that estimate of 50 to 60% of homes having debris out. So I brought that up with a couple of our task force members after you and I spoke this afternoon. And I think there's a big difference in opinion on that. And I think they're going to try to get with Chief Martin this week to look at that. I think that their view is more like 25% of homes have debris out, not near 50 to 60%.
Yeah, if you could just any update on that, if you could just send it over my way, it helps us for planning purposes.
Okay. Van?
Hi, thank you, Justin. Listen, first of all, I want to thank you for all the information. You've been very helpful in walking through this with us. My question has to do with the bags, like insulation and things like that we don't want just blowing around the island. There was a suggestion that we put it all in clear bags. Is that still the rule?
Yes, clear bags are great. It's streamlined so we can see exactly what's in the bag, as well as helps to containerize it, keep it from blowing around. So yes, absolutely, clear bags are still recommended. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Where can we source these, and can I trade in a couple of bull bags for them?
So Van, get with anyone from Duncan to Sean and Allie, Jen Parker, in any of the property managers can get to our cache of clear bags. We had 4,100 gallon 2 mil trash bags, clear trash bags donated to the island from the owners of Beauty and the Beach. And so we have those on island. You can get some rolls of those.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
John?
Hey, thank you so much. So my question is actually geared more towards Chief Martin. I'm not sure if he's on. Why haven't we started burning horticulture like on USEPA? I was on island today. I drove by USEPA. I drove my boat by USEPA. You see them, they're burning. They've been burning for a few days. What are we waiting? Why do we want it trucked off the island? After Charlie, we burned everything and it went well.
Thanks, John, bringing it up. We did have forestry out there on Monday. We did an entire island survey regarding horticultural debris, both in the improved and unimproved undeveloped lots, as well as the state preserve and the South Banks. We did discuss a couple of contingency plans to do that. Wasn't the first conversation that we had undertaken regarding burning the horticultural waste on the island. The hangups were with burning locations, and those all needing to be vetted by the DEP. It was something that was out of forestry's jurisdiction. We would all have to go to them for clarification, certification of a site. At that point, Justin and Crowder Gulf had gotten to us and had started working with us, and us being the island. Yes, my cat. In an entire solution for all of the debris, not just the horticultural. So they elected to kind of take a step back and not interfere or complicate the work of Lee County and Crowder Gulf. So we do have that option. There's a couple of things we did look at. There's a couple of lots. They aren't always on the preserve. That was the other portion. They would need to select a contractor to do that burning as well. It's a misconception that the fire department or even forestry is authorized to use or run a incineration site. So that would have to be done as well. Now, we did discuss this Monday, but again, we didn't want to complicate Justin and Lee County's and Crowder Gulf's methods that we're moving forward. We do, John, have that as a plan B, and we would be more than willing to enact that if we run into something where this just keeps to be dragging further and further out. We have a fire hazard that needs to be addressed, and very well known. We're doing what we can with our what we have as abilities for extra staffing and patrols, but this is a major concern for myself and the staff, as well as people on the island. So that's why we haven't started burning yet, but it is not off the table.
Cool. John, anything else? Paul?
Hey, thanks, Swin. So it's real quick. I got like three different questions. One is for the actual bull bag. What is the actual requirement around that? What if the bull bag somehow just magically shows up as a white, just a white bag? Wouldn't even know the bull bag is that a
I'll let Justin answer that, but I think if they notice that it is a branded bag in any way, they're not going to pick it up. Hey, David, do we know who's talking right now?
Yeah. So that's still
Oh, is that John?
John. Yeah.
Oh, he's breaking up.
Yeah.
You hear me or no?
You were breaking up, John. Cannot hear you.
Can you mute?
Yeah. Justin, do you want to speak to that regarding if a bull bag showed up as suddenly a white bag?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate your creativity there, but yeah, anything that's bull bag related that looks like a bull bag, we'll be able to identify that bag. And Crowder has been given strict directive not to touch those bags. So, we would encourage the use of clear bags or to go the route of the generic China bags as an alternative.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Justin. And then the second question I have is with regards to barging, do we need to have barges? I mean, if there's such a delay here and the pricing pretty obscene from Mike Verona submitted, is there, what if we started using some of the, I mean, there's a lot of captains, there's a lot of skiffs, and if we allow them to use the, take away the clear bags, is that an option? As a collaborative option, like Lisa mentioned?
I mean, it's an option for any homeowner on the island to transport debris. If you wanted to expedite the debris removal for your home, then you could go any route that you choose to do so. As for
your assistance, I mean, with having the gas paid and obviously some having them give awarded for it. I
don't think there's any process for FEMA to reimburse the county to pay a individual private captain. They would have to be part of this bid process on barging.
Correct.
So the captains could, as a whole, could submit an RFP, especially like even with Duncan, like Duncan has a nice 30-foot skiff. So they could, in fact, do an RFP submission response and okay.
If they can meet the scope of the bid work.
Totally got it. Yep.
Hey, Swin. This is Matt Wikes, Island Club.
Matt.
I just want to put in there that if we're doing the cleanup and the construction on your home, we are going to take away a bull bag or a Baxter or whatever it is in your yard as we're doing the work in the cleanup, and we're not concerned about what brand it has on it. Just FYI.
Cool.
Okay. The last question I have is more about like, I'll call it just ability to clear your land. I noticed the pieces of A land got cleared, including the mangroves along it. Is that now allowed based on where we are this time with the cleanup effort, or is that just my perception?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to trimming mangroves or clear cutting mangroves, it's a little more in line with the Lee County Department of Natural Resources or the Wildlife Commission that would oversee that. As far as solid waste perspective, when it comes to a lot, if it's an unimproved lot and we see that it's been cleared and set out to the right of way for collection, then unfortunately it would not qualify. Only the improved lots with a residential dwelling would constitute as debris in the eyes of FEMA. So that's what we would be collecting. So if someone went through the effort of trimming or clear cutting mangroves, I think they may have other entities coming after them. It would not be solid waste, but certainly if we come across something like that, we've got some connections over at our Natural Resources Department that would probably have someone over there very quickly to address that issue.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Pat?
Oh, hey, one other thing, Duncan.
Question.
And you can do the raise hand, by the way. Sorry about that. If I can defer to Duncan, because he was trying to raise his hand.
Hey, so thanks, Paul. Unfortunately, I'm not on the app. I'm on the website here, but so Justin, thanks for coming in to our commissioners meeting the last time at the firehouse. We talked a little bit, and this goes to what Swin was talking to you about consolidation. Now, I'd be willing to volunteer my commercial parcel. It's just zone vacant commercial. So I can send you an email, I guess, to see if you can help expedite some of the zoning so we can.
Are you watching?
That as a designated drop area. I mean, is that something you're interested in? That solid waste, would that help you guys? Because it's on commercial.
Yeah, I mean, by all means, if you wanted to submit that as a possibility for a staging area, then we can have that available and know that it's there. So that would be one of the steps involved through DEP pre-site authorization, is the DEP needs to verify that the landowner has granted access to that parcel. So then an agreement would be set between Crowder Golf and the property owner. So in your case, they would just want to see that written agreement. So that would all be part of the process. As it stands now, we are not planning to use private lots. We're going to start with exclusively right-of-way collection, see how that goes. But yeah, absolutely. If you wanted to send over the aerial through the Lee County property appraiser and showing the strap number for your commercial property that has potential for a staging area, then we will definitely keep that. We've also got some other sites in mind, that we're keeping an eye on as potential staging area as well, should we need to go that route.
Okay, I think we lost Duncan. Pat?
Well, it was kind of what Paul was saying. I know a lot of people bought all these different kind of bags, and what happens if they were spray painted another color? That's what I was thinking. All of a sudden, a green bag is now got a logo that says Upper Captiva Civic Association.
With the patented bags, I mean, I think it's a great system that you guys have out there, under normal circumstances. So I would encourage you to keep those bags on your properties, save them until after
Okay, thank you.
is done with the cleanup. And then you can resume, those normal operations, and it wouldn't require defacing the bags or trying to, get around those, those patents, things like that. So, again, whether you spray paint it or, turn it green, turn it white, at the end of the day, it's still a bull bag. It's still their property. So, we wouldn't encourage you to do that.
Okay.
Norman?
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can.
Super. I was about 10 minutes late on the meeting, so this may have already been caught, or I'm up in Alaska, so sometimes things don't come across that clear. But really, with the residential pickup, Justin mentioned that as long as you're within 10 feet of the road, and you stack your debris, that they can grab it. So the question is, if it's a homeowner's property, the right of way in a lot of places is pretty small. It's non-existent actually. And so if it's actually on your property, but it's within 10 feet of the road, they can reach it.
Yeah, the equipment that they have has the ability to reach in about 10 foot. So they'll do the best they can to get in there. So 10 foot is sort of the general rule of thumb, if you will. So preferably, the closer you can get it to the road, the better. With the nature of the narrow roads, if you need to use that full 10 foot, then, feel free to do so. We will reach in there. These guys are really good clam bucket operators. They'll look at overhead obstructions. They'll look at obstacles. They'll, position that truck to be in a spot where they can get as much material as possible. If for some reason they're only able to reach in, let's say 6 foot out of the 10 foot because of, an overhead obstacle that's preventing them from gaining access, what they may do is take whatever else they couldn't get on the second pass or the third pass. So it would then free up that right of way space for you then to move the rest of your material out. And then, we would be able to continue to collect a little bit each time as they come through.
Justin, I've got a similar question. We've got the lot across the street from us and we cleared everything out, not off of this other lot, but off of the developed lot. And we stacked it in front of the roadway there, or on the edge of that lot there, because there is not 10 feet. If I put it in front of my house, the road would have been clogged. There would be no more road there. So I put it on my across the street lot. I hope that's not a problem for them. We didn't touch anything on that lot. We didn't clear that lot and pile it up there. We just hauled our brush across the road because that was the only place to put it. Is that problematic?
Not necessarily. If, we're going to use our best judgment. So there'll be a Crowder truck, and there's going to be a Thompson Consulting monitor with that truck at all times. So what they're doing is they're looking to see, if you've got debris staged in front of a lot adjacent to you or across the street, but very clearly your parcel is full and you had no more space, that's clear. We're gonna understand what's going on. If we see a private lot that's fully been cleared with a dozer and all of it's been pushed out to the right of way and there's no home on that dwelling, then that's another story. But yeah, it's a best judgment case. Given the nature of the area, we do expect that to happen, especially without the use of private lots here, at least for our initial intent of first pass. Yeah, go ahead and use the right-of-way space that you have available, even if it requires, once your space is full, using what's across the street or adjacent to you. That we'll be able to tell based on the debris type where it came from for the most part.
And Justin, just following up on that a little bit, after the first pass, if say 20 piles got skipped because you guys viewed as a potential issue, we'll be able to come to you, document, hey, this was just brought across the street, not cleared, all like that, and work through that, right?
Yeah, we'll work through that on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. Cool. Lisa?
Hi, so follow-up question. Sorry, follow-up question. So it sounds like the county and Chief Martin are in agreement, and yet there's this like hold. Chief Martin doesn't want to step on the county's toes and so forth. So we know that there's these incinerator boxes available that are seemingly very appropriate for an island like ours. Is that a monetary approval situation, or why wouldn't it make sense to have the forestry bring these incinerator boxes that create no fire risk and very little waste after they're used? Is that something that the county could approve? That's just question number one.
The idea of air curtain incineration has not been ruled out. It was not in the original proposal, based on the recommendation of Crowder Golf being the debris experts. Their guidance was, hey, if we've got equipment on island capable of taking that raw vegetative material and transporting it with the equipment that's already there, the preliminary damage assessment did not show a whole heck of a lot of vegetative waste. So they said they could move it, and they actually recommended moving it with the knuckle boom style truck. But I mean, again, the idea of air curtain incineration has not been eliminated. It is an option that we have available. In certain cases, Crowder Golf has used air curtain incineration. It would involve smoke screening. Cost efficiency could be a definitely a good option. So really, we know that the construction debris has to be barged off. Vegetative waste, there are other options that are available. We could go that route possibly, but based on the quickest means of moving that material once a truck is on island, the recommendation of the debris experts was to go ahead and transport it. So as it stands now, that's what we were leaning towards.
So not to be adversarial to you, but if we're now at a 2-week holding pattern, wouldn't it make sense to push some of those alternative methods through to at least eliminate the vegetative debris rather than like open burning and some of those other things? I know that method is costly, but here we are sitting here in a waiting pattern when, we thought kind of all of this stuff was going to start this week. So who is it? Is it you? Is it your department that can kind of help us push that through to get those means out here to at least start that process, not in 2 weeks, but soon?
I can certainly run it through my director, Mr. Whitehead. We can coordinate through Chief Martin. There's a number of entities involved with a burn operation, so we would need to involve the Forest Service as well in that. And I can certainly mention it to Crowder Golf. So there's just a number of entities that would need to be on board with that. Chief, I don't know if you had anything else from your perspective to add to that at all, but we're not opposed to the idea of air curtain incineration.
Yeah, I got a couple of thoughts. Part of that forestry survey, which was their second survey, I asked them for their options, what their thoughts were on removing all of the horticultural debris that was surveyed. The level or the amount of horticultural debris, in their opinion, would be able to be handled by either Crowder's proposal and grappling it off, barging it off, or it could be chipped. So then I asked about the ACIs, the incinerators, if you will. And that's how we kind of started that conversation. They reminded me that any of this type of removal is by contract under Crowder Gulf. So they would have to get on board with this method of disposing of it. One of the other problems that we had was the lack of available space to set up the operation. Duncan had earlier in the meeting offered up some of his commercial property. That's exactly the kind of option that we could look into, but like was said earlier, Justin was saying we have to get DEP as well as forestry's approval. Those have to be inspected. Then we would get a hold of Crowder Gulf. They would get the hold of their contractor, or if they have that equipment, then set up the site. The fear is that we would be duplicating effort, not knowing at the time that we were going to run into this delay with barging that has come up. So I hope there's a little more information and clarity with that. I agree with Justin 100%. It's not off the board. It's something that we're looking at and ready to move forward with.
So I understand what you're saying, but it seems like all of these things, it's taking time. So what can we do to cut through the time? Like, I think we all agree that it's becoming a concern. I mean, myself, I have like, my entire house is surrounded in these ginormous piles of debris. So, I mean, could conceivably, because I know nothing of what I'm speaking about, so excuse me for that, but I mean, could these big incinerator type devices be set up on the beach? Could they be, I mean, could we not cut through some of this stuff? And
again, we did look at the beach. We looked at the beaches as well because they're nice, they're open, they're close to water sources, and for all intents and purposes, a pretty good area to do this. But they shied away from that, they being forestry, shied away from that because not only did it come into now a DEP, Environmental Protection Department, it also started to come into Fish and Game. And then the more inspections that you have to go through to get the thing to be able to sit on that beach, it was kind of time prohibitive as well, just by the sheer number of loops that they're going to make us go through to put it there.
But isn't the whole premise behind these devices is that they are self-contained and they do not pose a threat, and they do not infect fish and wildlife. They do not do any of those things. So why the red tape? How can we find a way to cut through that to get it done?
They didn't give me any solutions to that. They gave me the algorithm that we would have to navigate with it. They're very impressive too. I wasn't aware of the numbers. They can take approximately, what did he say it was, 80 yards of debris and turn it into 40 pounds of byproduct. They're very efficient, but the problem again became it really falls contractually under Crowder Gulf's umbrella or their sphere. And we kind of have to, they go to the county, we can burn, we need to make sure that they're okay with it. And then we'll move forward with it. Again, we're ready to do it. We've got a couple of sites we could look at. We're waiting to hear from Crowder and the county on how they'd like to proceed.
So Justin, can you make that happen for us?
Yeah, it looks like, I'm sorry, it looks like we have a chicken and the eggs thing here where we're looking at Crowder Golf and they're saying, they're willing to do this, but they want a green light from us. Is there a model that we could pattern after what they're doing on USEPA? If they're already burning debris on USEPA, is there a way to look at how they expedited that through the process and get this rolling? It seems to me that, at $15,000 a trip, which is outrageous, hopefully we can get the county can negotiate a better price. But if they can't, it seems a shame to be sending yard debris or non-building material, having to box that up and send it off island at $15,000 a round trip. I mean, we should be able to burn that and be much more cost effective.
If I may, with regard to USEPA's burning operation, they have a pre-approved active site that they had activated last year for some non-related work. So all it took for them literally to do was to have forestry come check at it 4 days after the storm, and they were back in business. So they already had gone through this algorithm to get a site already approved. That's why they're doing this ahead of us. It was just because they had an existing project underway when this happened.
Yeah, so I want to just add real quick that the county expected to start picking up this week, right? So this wasn't something like they, knew was going to take a long time and they should have been starting some other process. This was a curveball, the procurement department hitting them with, we're not paying $15,000 round trip for a barge. And so, Justin, is there a way for you to concurrently work on both of these and see which one wins the race?
Absolutely.
Vegetative debris?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, we haven't for sure decided on the vegetative debris route removal process yet. I've got a meeting tomorrow with Crowder Golf with Doug. I can relay the concerns directly in regards to, what's going to be the quickest method to start with vegetative debris removal, whether it's chipping, whether it's, air curtain incineration, or is it waiting 2 weeks for the trucks to show up and, start barging that material off island. I can tell you this though, on the USEPA situation, Crowder Golf is not doing that burn operation. The county will be handling the hauling of construction debris off of the island out there. But they were able, I don't know if the details on the funding for that operation, it may have been funded privately over there. But that's something that they are doing on their own accord. So Lee County Solid Waste or Crowder Golf is not involved with that burning operation. I mean, we went and met with JR over there to keep in touch with them. But yeah, that's a separate entity that's going on over there. So, if the, if that was the route that was chosen, is to go another route for vegetative removal or vegetative burning, prior to Crowder Golf coming on site, I mean, that would not be something that Lee County would step in and get involved with. We would obviously allow that to happen from our perspective. It's just a means of expediting things. And another option for you too is I believe there's a private lot that's currently accepting material to be chipped up on site and disposed of. Is that still an option for residents there on North Cap, or is that private lot currently at capacity?
Which private lot?
I want to say it's over by the Safety Harbor Club. I want to say there was a small lot with vegetative debris that's already been chipped up. And that's a disposal method, if I'm not mistaken, for homeowners to utilize to grind up.
Oh, you're talking the Safety Harbor Club chipping area. Yeah. I don't know if we could use that. We'd have to have Safety Harbor Club.
Okay.
Yeah, the volume is too great.
Yeah.
So if I may just ask my second question. So I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it. So we've got a situation here on the island where we have a newly owned business, and I'm not entirely sure that my facts are straight, but I believe that business, who is now quoting $15,000 a barge, is what is holding us up. And as a homeowner who may have or may not have my facts straight, I feel very unhappy that it is this new business who is trying to completely come in and take over all of those factions for us is now causing this delay for us. And so to my question earlier, that I understand how the bid process works in a commercial environment. I get it. But I personally feel like if we can get some smaller companies to pool together to help us in a more timely fashion remove this debris without this conglomerate who is here on the island, we would all be better served, and the county would be better served. So I understand that you're looking for one bid and one bid kind of quote unquote winner, but in this format, in this current climate that we're facing, I'm not sure that's the best scenario. Is there any ideas there?
I do foresee multiple bid proposals coming through. They just need to be able to verify that they're licensed, insured, as well as they meet the criteria of that scope of work. So this would, open up the opportunity for not only your local locally owned companies, but some of the outside companies that are currently working over around Punta Rasa as it is now. We've seen several barge companies that are working through this area, working for private construction companies, or a lot of them were using their assets, their resources to haul material out to Captiva Sanibel before the causeway bridges opened up. So there is a larger presence of barge operations here than there normally would be. So we're hoping that that helps with the number of bids that are submitted in order to get the best option and the best price point.
So you're willing to consider more than just one? Because it seemed to me earlier you were just looking for one company to receive the bid.
So out of the multiple companies that would submit a bid, we would be selecting one barge operating company. Now that one barge operating company may have the ability to subcontract out smaller barge operations in order to keep their motion moving. But we're looking at selecting one barge company that has the ability to haul the material that we have generated as quickly as possible off of the island. So, that may involve multiple barges through one barging company, but yeah, they have to be able to meet that criteria in order to be selected, which is all clearly identified in the scope of work.
That's the pickle we're in. Thank you, Justin.
We're like, 4 weeks out from impact of Hurricane Ian, and you guys are just issuing an RFP. Like, this is my biggest issue with this. I don't understand why all of a sudden there's an issue with somebody trying to hold this island hostage, and y'all weren't like on top of it before. I appreciate everything you've done, but like, it just feels like it's $1 too late.
Right, and I can appreciate your concern. So, we were really counting on the original proposal. We didn't see pricing for a while. That took a while for that price point to be submitted. We had the system in place, and we determined that system would be capable of transporting the material off island. We had a plan in place where that material would be brought over to the co-op on Pine Island on Maria Drive. There's a debris management site right down the road from Maria Drive. So that was all part of the initial plan. So really the only setback was that dollar amount. So, once that came through, that's when we went right back to procurement, and procurement said this needs to go out through the bid process. So, that if all went as planned initially, then obviously this wouldn't be needed. And I can completely understand that's a valid point that you've brought up. So we will work to escalate through procurement to make this happen as quickly as possible.
I just think it's like, we've all been sitting out here for a long time with various degrees of damage to our homes and our paradise here. And, I get it. Like, we are always the last to be served. But when I hear you guys say today that now you're going to issue an RFP, it should have been done 3 weeks ago. So that's my only point. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bill?
Yeah, I just have what I think are 3 points of clarification rather than specific questions. The first, all of us are really concerned about the amount of vegetative debris, but the truth is that's the one commodity that we actually have some control over if we're willing to spend our own money and have it chipped in place on our own lots. Now that's true, at least in my case, except for the 3 palm trees that Forestry Service cut off at the fire district's request, because those are laying whole across the yard. But again, for those that, at least I think, have concerns about that decaying vegetative waste, the quickest way, if we don't want to wait another 2 or 3 weeks, is to chainsaw it and pay ourselves to have it chipped into our own yards. The second comment is that after listening to the back and forths about right-of-way, Justin, you may not really be aware that the right-of-way or the easement for utilities and roads is about 15 to 20 feet from what should be the center line of each of those roads. That's not exactly the right numbers because the roads meander instead of being straight. When you say right of way, Justin, people immediately think you're talking about placing it on the road. And I know you keep telling folks that it is up to 10 feet away from the curb or up to 10 feet away from the sandy edge of our road. That 10 feet is almost all in that easement that each of us as owners have granted to each other, both for utilities and for traveling on the roads. So folks should not block the roads. They're only 10 or 15 feet wide. That's a problem, not just for the fire district, but all of us that have to try to be able to move back and forth on the roads. So it's not placing it in the roadway, as some folks think you mean by right of way. It's within that 10 feet of the side of the road. The third comment is a clarification, Justin, of what Paul Preston said or asked about the mangroves. And I think part of the issue is going to be when you actually look at that particular property, it is a property with a house with a single strap across 3 lots. And it's the 2 of the 3 lots that were bulldozed and cleared. So based on what you said at either the fire district meeting or at last week's Zoom meeting, it actually, that problem actually falls within the scope of, it is a home on a 3/4 acre, 3 lots that have been strapped together into a single piece, and why that homeowner may have believed he could get away with doing what Paul pointed out. So again, those are the 3 clarifications that I had. There's no questions there. I appreciate the effort that you're doing. And I actually do understand when at the last minute, a private business wants to gouge. All of us are impacted by that, not just the homeowners, but the county as well. So thanks for your work.
Norman?
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hey, this is like herding cats. I'm sorry. You know, people are jumping ahead of me. I had some questions and people jumbled in, and it's not my style to be rude and cut those people off. They obviously have feelings and they're sensitive to their homes and stuff, but a little tighter moderation would be great. But other than that, I've chaired meetings in Alaska here, and it's hard to keep people all in line. But anyway, I did have more questions. That's why I put my hand back up, and that's why I waited till you acknowledged me. Thank you. The lot that I have interest in is it has 3 sides that front on roads inside of Safety Harbor Club. So debris piled along the side of the roads on any 3 sides of that lot could get picked up. This is for Justin.
Yes, that's correct. As long as it's leading up to a named road, then all 3 of those sides of your lot would be eligible for collection.
Okay, so we could spread the debris on 3 sides. And is there going to be a way to register your debris for pickup? Is there going to be a clearinghouse or some way to say, hey, I've got stuff on so-and-so avenue or the 3rd palm tree from the left? Is there a way to do that? And do I need to mark the debris, who the owner is? If it happens to be across the other side of the road because there's a hedge in the way or something? Thank you.
The only thing you need to do, Norman, is just need to get it out on the right of way. You know, the debris contractor as well as Thompson Consulting will do the rest of the research as to how it's set out. If you've got it all on your right of way. They'll take care of it if your right of way is full and you needed to use the right of way space adjacent to your lot. They'll be able to look at the debris that's staged on that right of way and pick it up accordingly. So again, it's all based on the judgment of having some, the folks out there that are, experts in their field. They'll be able to very clearly identify fraudulent debris, so anything that is fraudulent or does not appear to be storm debris related, then it would be left behind. So we would go through, we would mark that street as completed, but there would be potentially a land clearing pile size debris that would not be eligible. So that would be something that as that question comes in, we would have that on our maps as to why it was deemed ineligible, and be able to relay that back to the property owner. So if you feel that debris is eligible and it was marked as ineligible, this is where documentation comes into play. So if you've got a video that shows that every one of those trees had blown over in the event of a storm, and sometimes a tree may be angled, still green, and at this point any green vegetation that's mixed in with these piles is going to create a bit of a red flag. We would assume most of the storm debris at this point would be dead. So that's some of the cues or the obstacles that we would face when it comes to looking at and identifying what's truly storm debris and what is not. But yeah, typically you just place it curbside and then the rest is fine. There's no need to document that or register the material once you have it out.
One more, is there going to be a handler with the contractor that we can call in time with the process when they are actually on the ground doing it? Or do you just have to say, oh, like the trash company, I guess I'll wait until next week when they pick it up, which could be another month when they get back to that section of the island? I'm just looking for a better way to communicate directly so as to save time and effort on everyone's part.
With the debris collection falling under the Lee County umbrella, you're welcome to contact the Lee County customer service number if you feel that you had a pile of storm debris that was not collected, and you feel that it may have been deemed as ineligible. You're more than welcome to contact our Lee County customer service number. It's Monday through Saturday, 7:30 to 5 p. And that number is 239-533-8000. And you could submit whatever it is that you're concerned about. They would generate a work order, and then it would be streamlined to the project manager overseeing, the North Captiva collection. And I believe Crowder Golf will have a dedicated project manager on island as well, to oversee operations. So it would be relayed to them for further investigation.
Okay, so how can I say this? Brown is down, which is, no problem with picking up brown debris. If it's green, there could be questions and you could have problems. So it's best not to mix those to avoid delays in removal. Correct?
Yeah, that's the correct rule of thumb. I mean, you may still have a little bit of green mixed in with the brown if it's small amounts. I mean, we know that sometimes a tree may still have a couple green limbs on it, even though the rest of it appears to be dead. So you'll run into that situation. But yeah, if there's more green debris on a storm debris pile than there is dead debris, then that's going to raise some question marks, and that may make the pile ineligible. So it's important to make sure that only the original storm debris, that's what FEMA is intending to reimburse at the end of the day, is storm debris. So we just need to make sure that everyone is on board with that and not trying to do private landscaping or cleaning up the rest of the property. The intent is to get that hazardous and highly flammable storm debris off the right of way before we go in and delay collection because so and so decided to clear a couple extra trees that they've been wanting to get rid of for a few years and placed all those out. So yeah, it really streamlines everything if we can exclusively collect storm debris from the curbside.
Okay, one last question. Thank you. Black mold, sheetrock. There's, like most of you, there's going to be a buttload. is it best that it's in reinforced bags that can be picked up? Or can we pile it in 3 foot by 3 foot piles? And then they can grapple that? I mean, what's gonna work best for the contractor? What's gonna be the, what would we like to happen?
Yeah.
So I can plan for it.
I think with sheetrock, especially if it's saturated and prone to sitting out and being susceptible to the humidity and potential rain, if you're able to containerize that in the clear bags or the generic construction bags, I think that would be preferable. Just keep in mind that we need to be able to identify what that material is. So if you do go the route of putting it in a construction bag, make sure to keep that bag open. But this would also help prevent keeping little pieces of drywall from being mixed in with the sand or, contaminating the beaches or your properties for the next few years to come. So ultimately we want to keep the environment pristine and beautiful like it normally is, like it still is. Just by containerizing that little small pieces of debris, I mean, that could also be things like small pieces of metal. Any small pieces is fine to keep containerized, but the larger stuff, if you try to containerize things like lumber, you probably could use one of the construction bags, but we had talked a little bit last week about trying to place lumber with screws in it in a clear plastic bag. I mean, it's just going to end up tearing the bag open. And it's probably not going to make it to the curbside before you have to clean it up from dragging it through your yard. So, they'll be able to pick it up either way. But for your little stuff, I think it would help streamline things to keep it containerized in a bag. Just please avoid the use of black bags, because every one of those black bags slows down operations. It has to be split open to see what's in it. We need to verify that there's no garbage, there's no hazardous waste, there's no e-waste, things of that nature. So that's why, clear bags or construction bags are the only 2 bags we recommend.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry, one more question. If you took a blue tarp, laid it on the ground, piled your debris in it, and made a diaper out of it that you could look into to see what's in there, would the grapple be able to pick that up? No problem. Say a pallet size load that you stacked up, would that work for them?
Yes, that would work. They may take the tarp with it. So if you wanted to keep the tarp, I wouldn't encourage that. But if you do place it out on a tarp to prevent those little pieces from getting down in the sand, then yes, they will be able to pick it up that way.
Thank you, because the whole thing with trying to get bags after a disaster like this, the size of bowl bags, eco bags, whatever you want to call them, I'm just thinking a blue tarp and you tie it up like a diaper and send it away. And I think that's a good way. Thank you very much for accommodating me.
Thanks, Norman.
Hey, thanks, Norman. I'm going to paint my bowl bag blue, and then I'm going to cut off the sides and make sure it looks like a tarp. So thank you for that idea.
Hey, Justin, to follow up on one of Norman's questions and to clarify. So a couple of my properties in particular, I have some cabbage palms that are now laying at like a 20-degree angle. Right. And so they're not necessarily dead, but there's no way we're going to save it by raising it up. So we're just going to cut that down. So it may go roadside sort of green by the time my landscapers cut that down.
Mm-hmm. I think that's where it'd be important to just grab some pictures to document it. That way, if there's any question, you can say, hey, listen, guys, I mean, these trees, look at them. They're not going to make it. I don't want a tree at a 20-degree angle to remain on my property. Clearly the storm is the one that pushed this over. Yeah. So that's going to be the standard approach, is just okay. Show us some pictures to show that it's storm related, and we'll move forward with collection.
Right on. Pat? We can't hear you. You're muted, Pat.
Sorry.
We got you.
I have a vacant lot behind me and a vacant lot adjacent on the side. And there's like sea grapes that are, some of them are 10, 20 inches wide that are ancient, that have broken and fallen. So is nothing going to happen on any of the debris from the storm on these vacant lots, or we're just stuck with it on these lots? And do I cut and shove it back on? I mean, it's like I have huge
If you've
dead
got,
stuff all in the back. You know, we've worked on the front, but it's like a jungle beside me and behind me with fallen and uprooted trees.
the standard FEMA approach for that situation, they have, like leaner hanger crews. So if you've got a tree from a vacant lot that's now blown onto your property, that tree now becomes your property. So you can take that tree, cut it out, place it curbside, and we'll take care of it. As far as, going into the lot and trying to clean it up, that's where it would be deemed ineligible. So
we're stuck with, okay.
No, you cut it up and you put it on the curb and they take
Yeah,
it.
it's just
But I can't go clear. I mean, yes, I know I cut what's on my property, what fell. But meanwhile, there's uprooted and we have all this vegetation dead on the
if
adjacent
it's a
lot.
vacant lot and on a vacant lot, it doesn't qualify for FEMA reimbursement to the county, so they won't pick it up.
Okay. Okay.
iPhone?
Pardon?
Hey, Swin, it's great photo. Question for Jason. I'd like to get down to the nitty gritty, and it might sound stupid, but if you guys are grappling, I had all my debris in big heavy duty garbage bags, and now I switched them, spent hours putting it in clear bags. Like I have stuff piled on a mattress. Now I have lumber piled on the bags with the sheetrock. If you grapple that, it's going to make some mess. Are there going to be laborers there with the clamshell bucket or the grappler to clean all this mess up? Because they're not going to get it into anything with a grappler. It's going to fall apart in midair and go all over the place. I have a little experience with this. Could you just tell me, are there going to be a lot of laborers helping these guys with the clamshell buckets and the grapplers to get the mess into the truck? Or are they just going to grapple and use the clamshell bucket and what falls out, falls out?
Typically, they won't be raking up the little pieces. So if you can have it.
No, I'm not talking about raking. I'm not talking about raking up. Being that we changed the bags, took it out of the heavy duty contractor bags and put them in these clear bags, it's going to fall apart when they grapple it. So I'm not trying to be rude. I have experience in this, and it's not grappable material the way it is piled up. So my question is there laborers with this, or is it just an operator on a machine?
It depends on each crew. Each crew will be run a little differently. Though for sure, obviously, will be the operator. Some of them have a grounds crew as well. We'll have to see how that goes. I'll get with Crowder and follow up with you on that question.
Okay, my other point is my backyard, most of my trees were uprooted, some big guys, and my palm trees that fell, I cut them all into pieces today and dragged them out. Mostly all my vegetative debris is green, and I didn't have time to take videos of me with the chainsaw all day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can tell the difference of a freshly cut, green palm tree that appeared to have been thriving before it was brought out to the curb, and one that's
No, wait, excuse me,
brown.
Jason, all my trees were thriving. They're all green, but they all got knocked over by the wind. They're uprooted out of the ground.
Mm-hmm.
This is my point. I'm cutting trees today in my backyard that are down. I could film, I have about 5 more to do, but they're all green trees. Most of my brush is green. It was ripped out. The stumps pulled out of the ground. If you understand what I mean?
Yeah, and it's a similar case in Swin's yard, with the palm tree that was at a 20-degree angle. So, again, if as we get into second and third pass, that's when we'll really start keying in on the green stuff. First pass, we know some folks haven't even had a chance to get back out to their properties yet. So,
right.
So that's all taken into consideration. And again, that's why there will be a representative from Thompson Consulting with each truck to, just sort of investigate when they do see those piles that have greenery in them. So I'm not saying that if there's greenery in it, it's automatically invalidated, but they're going to look at it and they're going to look a little closer through to see what may have caused that. So if you're present and you're able to show pictures, great.
Now, I'm sorry, Jason, I keep interrupting. I really apologize. But So if I'm not present and I come back to this island, and all this hard work I've done with a chainsaw the last week is still going to be sitting in my front yard, what recourse do I have?
Well, at that point, if it's, if it's something that was deemed ineligible, then we would try to make contact with you. If you're not there, at that point, then we would typically, we would either wait till a second pass to try to make contact with you then, or possibly the third pass. Or what we may do is touch base with a neighbor and say, hey, we've seen some green stuff. Are you aware if, were you able to see this debris before it was placed curbside? Are you able to provide us with a little more clarity on it? So, they'll go that route. They'll try to explore. I mean, 9 times out of 10, if it's placed curbside, we're going to take it.
So, okay, how would I get my contact information to the contractor?
What you could do is you could place a sign up on your property with your information. So that way, once they're there, they very clearly see that sign. They know who to contact with any questions.
Okay.
You're more than welcome to go that route. You could place some kind of a business card on a small identified sign on the debris pile if you need to. Yeah, just a few ideas just to be able to have that contact information if it's needed. Hopefully it's not needed. Hopefully they go through, take care of it, move on, and then it's a done deal at that point. That's what we strive for. We need to make sure that no one's taking advantage of the system. I don't really foresee that. Typically, we don't see that often. Just wanted to make sure that that's clear and upfront with everyone. So again, I mean, if you're talking only a handful of palm trees that are green, that's
they're not palm trees, they're just regular different kind of trees. Go on to a different question. I'm really sorry. I have, like, say, a mattress. Now I have the metal on the bed. I have metal mixed in with framing lumber and sheetrock in clear bags. We don't have to separate the metal and the sheetrock, and that could all be in one pile.
Right. All one pile, all considered construction debris, all going to be processed. It's all considered class 3.
Right.
And yep, that's all going to the same final disposal location.
Now I'm gonna yank out golf cart batteries out of my one dead golf cart. I separate that. And what about a golf cart? I separate the batteries from the golf cart and I leave the golf cart in my front yard, 10 feet within the road.
Yep. Drain the fluids, pull the batteries, place it on the right way.
Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate all your work you guys are doing for us.
Thank you.
Okay, Claire?
Quick question. Swin and I jointly own a pair of stairs now, some really, really big iron circular stairs. They landed in our front garden and Swin doesn't want them back. So will you guys be able to pick them up?
Yes, we see that the spiral staircases did not fare well in the storm, and not just on North Cap, but Fort Myers Beach, Sanibel, Captiva. I didn't see any that made it, to be honest with you. So if that's the case and you have a spiral staircase in your yard, if there's any way you can move that to within 10 foot, then yes, they have the equipment and the manpower to move that and transport it and take it off of your property and barge it off site.
Ian nicely placed it in the right of way.
Yeah, it's right there, right at the front. You can't miss it. So thank you. Thanks so much.
Sure.
Awesome. All right, anyone else? Any last questions? Justin, thank you. You're solid. Great at all this.
Well, I appreciate you guys allowing me to come in here and hopefully provide some clarity. I know it's not an easy process, a lot of logistics, but ultimately we're here to help. Crowder Golf is experienced in this role, so we'll work with them. Anyone from Lee County obviously is a local resident. We live here too. We're frequent flyers. I mean, I'm an avid boater myself, so the idea of getting North Cab back to its original state is definitely something that's on all of our radars. Happy to work with you guys. Appreciate you all taking the time to listen in and make sure that not only your property is segregated out and set out properly, but it sounds like that message is being spread across the island. So we really appreciate that. It's making things a lot easier. And we will continue to move things along on the barge operations and keep you all posted along the way.
Well, one last question. We got Ava's got her hand up real quick. Last question here.
Well, I really had a comment and I didn't need Justin for that. So I thank him for all his information. I just had a comment for
all the other homeowners and for you, for UCCA.
Sure, go ahead.
And specifically, I wanted to ask Chief Martin about the emergency preparedness plan for the island. You know, it seems to me that, and I know that their priority is the safety of the island, the residents on the island. But going forward, I feel like that there are things that maybe were missed, like whenever the National Guard came on the island, it was commented that that's common practice. And if that's common practice, we weren't ready for it. Because it seems like there should have been some kind of system set up where maybe the fire department had a list of the codes of people's homes, or information at least to, you know, enter those homes. And in terms of the burning debris on the island, I know after Charlie they did that, and I don't know the circumstances of that because I bought my home after that. But if there needs to be a permit to burn and going through all these governmental requirements, is that something that we can have in place and as part of our emergency preparedness plan to avoid, you know, a lot of dried up debris? Because, you know, I've heard several people talk about renting again, and this is, you know, nothing against the renters, but I don't think that they're as careful or concerned about our island as we are. And, you know, one tossed cigarette could be a problem. So I just wanted to see if Chief Martin can address that about the emergency preparedness plan.
Sure. We have an internal one for the department that focuses internally. Then we interface with the county's all hazards plan, which aligns with communities as a whole. That way, whether you're in Cape Coral or you're on North Captiva Island, the procedure is the same. That way, the communications networks that are in place don't get disjointed. The responses are unified as well. In regards to being able to access the homeowners' properties without any type of hardware or use of force, that'd be wonderful. We could do that. We'd be willing to do that. With a lot of our homeowners changing hands in the last couple of years with COVID and all of that, that would be really beneficial. We have a couple of databases we use, interfacing addresses to home names to property managers, and using the system that's already there. But to do that, yeah, that would be very helpful moving forward. The use of the National Guard is very common in any type of large scale disaster, especially when it comes down to a state ordered state of emergency. They provide a lot of professional and logistical support for the agencies that are local working on the ground. The authority that was carried out for going door to door is carried by the urban search and rescue teams that are flown in to help mitigate any type of disaster. So it is a bit of misinformation that is something that the Guard initiated and was just freelancing, if you will, or working under some other type of chain of command. So that's where that came from. As far as burning, again, nothing was off the table, but because we are unincorporated entity in Lee County, we fall under whatever structures they have in place for different stages of the incident, whether that's preparation, response, and recovery. Lee County has a standing contract with Crowder Gulf for debris removal. As unincorporated parts of Lee County we all fall under that contract. We could try to pay for it ourselves, but I think with everyone paying their county taxes, not getting the use of the county's road and transportation networks on the island, I think they were the best option for us as a whole to start with. We're running into issues as far as being timely. But again, nothing is off the table. We don't have the authorization as a fire district to operate a type of device that would incinerate the horticultural waste that we're talking about today. We also don't have jurisdiction to go into the state preserve to conduct any of those type of operations either. So we kind of really run into a limited area that we can operate that type of operation. There's a lot of private land. There's not a lot of open places for us to do something like that. And it really would have to come down to getting the permits from DEP and forestry, and even the county if it was a non-emergent type of situation. So we have the options. We just need to go through the proper steps to get it executed.
Okay, so
I hope
Chief,
that
this isn't something that could be obtained, before a disaster happens, these approvals or whatever from EEP to do that. How is it different than Charlie? I guess that's what I don't understand.
From what I'm told, the burn method that was used during Hurricane Charlie was execute and ask permission later.
Oh, okay.
I'm not disparaging anybody. I don't have the details, and I certainly wasn't here, but I gather that information from the state ranger up at KO, as well as FWC and forestry. And that is where we're seeing forestry take very careful steps that we don't repeat that type of an incident. When you burn things like this, there's a high, all of the refuse is considered carcinogen, believe it or not. We may just cover it with sand, but the amount that we're talking about creates actually a hazardous materials issue that needs to be bartered off. That was part of the old issue. So it gets to be, it has a lot of fingers to it going in a lot of ways. So I hope that helped. If there's anything else I can give you more clarification on, please stop down. I'm in the office tomorrow, or give me a ring. I will definitely sit and get you all the answers that I can for you.
All right, thank you.
And I'll just butt in there real quick and say all the feedback that I got about Charlie is everything got drugged down to the state lands without permission, because everything was taking months. There was no process in place like now with the county and Crowder Gulf and everything to do anything on the island. And so residents just took it upon themselves, created huge piles, and then they had to come in after the fact and do it.
Okay, thank you.
Carrie, last question.
Okay, real quick. I just want to make sure, Justin, for your request for quotations for barges, you're actually looking at landing craft vessels, correct? Because a regular barge won't work on this island if you're going out for quotations for contractors off this island. You would have to bring it, any vessel, I would think you would have to bring any vehicle over on a landing craft vessel. Is that right?
Yeah, they would be more of a landing craft vessel. The dimensions are identified and a weight capacity is identified in the scope of work to make sure that we've got the adequate size dimensions to make sure that we're not undersized or oversized based on the landing zone that we have to work with.
Because for a regular flat top barge, you would have to have a pier on this island, wouldn't you? That would allow the vehicles to go on and off a flat top barge.
Yes, I believe that's correct. So
and
yeah,
there is none.
without the
There
ability
is
to have a
none,
pier,
is there?
you have to have the specialized equipment to handle it. So this is where we just really we limited on what the situation is, and we're leaving the subcontractor to identify exactly what barging area they would prefer to use on island. So
Well, the thing is, we would on the island hate to see yet another delay, because you guys go out with your RFP for a barge that depends upon using a loading and offloading facility at a pier on this island, because there is no such pier if you're not going to go with the local contractor. Those are the only piers that are available. Now, so make sure you get the broadest range of types of vessels so that there's not a further delay when somebody finds, oh, by the way, we can't bring a normal flat top barge in there.
Correct. Yeah, all that would be taken into consideration. And again, I know that the, if they were to use the east end of the airstrip, they would obviously need to have the equipment to do so, which would not involve a pier. So yes,
good.
absolutely important components. And it's something that would be reviewed heavily before we commit to whichever the company that has decided to go with.
Very good. Thank you.
All right, cool. All right, well, that was a little longer than I expected, but all great information. So we'll leave it at that. And as we get more info from the county on a start date, we will push it out there. And then Justin, please, if y'all find anything out about the potential burning of vegetative on island, let me know, and we can always have another one of these.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing we can do too is we can streamline through email communication. We can, unless we've got, some big changes or big updates, we'll try to keep that going through email. Seems to be a streamlined way, but yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely plan to attend as needed on some of the next meetings. We appreciate the opportunity to be able to reach the folks of the UCCA.
Thanks,
Hey,
everyone.
thanks, Justin. You were amazing. Great sport considering how many questions you answered. Very impressive.
Glad to help out. Thank you.
Everyone have a great night.
Thank you, everybody.
Yep.